Hey everybody, Jerome Maldonado. I wanted to talk to you guys today about how to buy land and how to build houses. And so one of the most profitable businesses that we've had over the years has been new construction, single family residences. Now we've never built to suit for customers. We've always built what we call spec homes, which spec homes are homes that you purchase a piece of land, you build it, you build out the land, you build and develop out the land. And once the house is fully completed, you put the house for sale, turnkey, you sell it. And so there is a little bit more risk in spec homes as opposed to pre-builds, but there's a lot less headaches. And so one of the build-to-suit model takes a lot of management of two aspects. One, you got to do project management, and two, you have to manage the emotions of the person that's purchasing the home that you're building the house for. And one of the biggest things is that most people, their single-family home is their number one investment. And so it's a very emotional purchase for most people. And so the reason we chose not to do build to suit is because we're so broadly expanded between multiple businesses to be able to set up a business model where we did a build to suit would mean more staff, more employment, more babysitting of emotions of customers and clientele. So as opposed to that, since we have been in the real estate sector for so many years, we just do market studies that say, okay, what are single family homes selling for? How many of them are selling? How saturated is the market, or how much inventory is on the market? And what is my profitability? And typically when we're building homes, we try to look for a profitability between 20 and 25% of the entire house value. So meaning if you have about a $600,000 house, we're looking at about $130,000, $135,000 profits, give or take, on the house. So when we're looking at developing and building out a house, we go in and we look at the latest trends and construction trim out that are being done in the primary market. So primary markets being the most stimulated markets across the United States that have the nicest architecture, and see what's relevant with current market trends. Right now, that modern trend is really, really hot, right? So all the square corners, the big giant windows, the planked wood floors, really light toned or dark grays and charcoals and stuff like that are really popular right now. Either the light whites, the light creams, and the charcoals, the grays, and a lot of that stuff. And so as markets change, as markets trend, we make modifications and changes to the way we do construction. For more content just like this, subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you like the content that you're hearing right now today, give us a thumbs up. What I really want to talk to you guys today is the process of how we actually get to that 20 to 25% profit margin, and what we're looking for when we're purchasing land and we're actually going in and facilitating costs and expenses. And so the first thing we look for is we say, okay, are we building in an area that supports a business model that houses are selling for what we need to be able to make the profit? And so because our business model sits between houses that sell between $500,000 and $650,000, I just used a simple theoretical example of about $600,000 on the acquisition price of a house. And so that's a business, that's a sector that we have specialized in for a number of years and has been very profitable and very promising for us. And so when we go in, I always look for a lot that is about 1/5 to 1/6 the cost of the actual house itself. And so if I'm going to build out a $600,000 house, I want to buy a piece of land for about $100,000 to about $125,000. And so even when we're doing developments, I'll usually sell the lots out for, between $125,000, sometimes $150,000. Typically when I get started, I'll bring builders in, give them discounted rates, maybe sell those exact same lots for anywhere between $90,000 and $125,000, where when later on the subdivision develops out and we have lots left over and there's just very few, we may even sell them as high as $150,000, $175,000, but my acquisition price per lot may only be $60,000 for each of the lots of what we have in on development fees. So that's where we really add to our profit margin when we're building our single family homes. But for the average person that's not developing the raw land, they're just going in and they're purchasing a lot. Okay, meaning that you find a vacant lot and you say, okay, the comps support my business model with new construction in this area, and the lot price is 1/6 the price of what my house is going to sell for. And so when you exercise that business model, that leaves you about 50 to 55% build cost. Now that includes all of your impact fees, that includes all your architecture fees, your engineering for your subgrade engineering, your geotextile engineering, so that way you can have a solid foundation and then all the architectural fees, the construction costs as far as materials, labor, roofing, everything from the ground up. And so those are great solid numbers to be able to base your acquisition on. So if you figure, okay, my build cost for construction acquisition with subcontractors, electricians, plumbers, concrete guys, roofers, painters, tile guys, trim out, cabinets, you name it, you should be in that 50 to 55% range as far as all materials, labor, and all construction costs. Now, out of that 55%, you're going to have impact fees. What impact fees are the fees you pay a municipality because they've either brought in water, they've brought in the roads, the curbs and gutters, whatever it is. And in certain municipalities, if it's small rural areas, typically they won't even have impact fees, and if they do, they're very marginal. But for the average inner cities across the United States, impact fees will range between $5,000 and $10,000 per single family home. And so when you're budgeting your costs, you go down, you talk to the city, and you ask them about impact fees, always look for a range between $5,000 and $10,000. Now, if you're in California, that might go up as high as $15,000 to $17,000 for an average single-family home, sometimes as high as $20,000. But for a median single-family home, you should be between $5,000 and $10,000 for your impact fees. Now, as far as utilities, I always go in, if I'm just doing a single lot, it's not cost. It's cost prohibited to have to bring in all the utilities yourself if you're doing one lot. So if I'm doing one lot, one home, I never look for vacant land that doesn't have utilities on it, and I urge you guys to do the same. So if you end up going in and you have electric to pull, gas to pull, water to pull, sewer to pull, and it's one lot, the ability to split that out over the course of a number of lots becomes very financially hindering to the profitability of the home. So we won't buy the lot. So if you're buying one single lot, always make sure that you have power on the lot, a transformer, make sure you have gas, make sure, if you don't have gas, make sure that it's approved to utilize propane, right? LP, and that way you have the ability to put gas in the home, and then you have, for heating and cooling, stoves and whatever else you want. Number 3, you want to make sure you have water, right? Or the ability to dig a well. Now, most wells in different cities are going to vary as far as their cost. Like here in the Southwest, we're in high desert. Our wells have to go down 200 plus feet, and so we may pay as much as $15,000 to $20,000 to dig a well. Now that cuts into your profitability. So it's much more advantageous to be able to have water on site where there's a water meter, and maybe it costs you $5,000 to set a water meter, and then you move forward with your construction and your costs. Now, it's all these small things that variegate your profit margin. It could change your profit margin from 20% to 25%. And if you do your homework and your studies as to which areas have the lower impact fees, your water cost to be able to get a water meter is a big variable. That right there alone, those two things alone could increase your profit margin by over $10,000 on one single family home. And so that alone makes a big buffer for trim out items, finish architecture, and even just profitability that goes back into your pockets. So those are two factors that we always look for. How much am I going to have to pay for water? And how much am I going to have to pay for impact fees? And if I can get into an area where impact fees are extremely low, I save $10,000 on impact fees, and then I save another $5,000 on water, that's $15,000 that goes back into my pocket. And that's what we actually do when we do our developments. That actually saves us a lot of money to add to our bottom line. Now, for most people that are living in big cities, you're not going to get a waiver on impact fees, and you're not going to get a waiver on water meter fees. But if you figure them into the cost of construction, typically you can even add that into the value of the house, and those marginal variances in costs you can actually put into the top end of your house. So where most people are asking $600,000 for the same house you're building, you might be able to ask $620,000 if you take that money and invest 50% of it into your pocket and 50% back into trim out items that just puts your house one notch, one level above the neighboring competition. Maybe by putting in better door handles and fixtures, nicer granite, better backsplash and tile, maybe nicer appliances. Appliances are always one thing that enhances the value of the house. So instead of going with regular appliances, you use Sub-Zero appliances, or you go in and you put in a larger stove that's more of a commercial grade stove where it looks really attractive with a nice big hood over it. And then everything else is all the same and marginal as far as what you would put in any normal home. But because of how massive that chef's stove looks and the big overhead hood looks, those factors alone will help increase the value of your home, because women in home buyer, they love kitchens and they love bathrooms. And so you want to be able to put your money into the kitchens and the bathrooms of those homes. Now, one thing that we do is when we price out the building the houses, I always get estimates from my subcontractors. One thing that we urge people to do always, it doesn't matter how long you've had your relationships with your subcontractors. Every once in a while, every third home, we go out and reprice the electrical, the plumbing, all our subcontractors, the roofing, all of our subcontractors. And the reason we do that is because we want to make sure that we're staying in a fair market value range. Because what a lot of these guys tend to do over the course of time is they know you get comfortable with them, they get comfortable with you. Their profitability may go down because maybe they're sloppy with labor and other factors that are outside of your control, and they just need to do a better job managing their labor. And in order to keep them on point, you sit back and go, okay, I just received 3 additional bids. You're 10% higher than everybody else. How can we get your bid in line with these guys? Otherwise, I'm going to be forced to go with another subcontractor. And I do that to keep everybody honest, because what happens in this business is that it's a hard business. And to be able to manage your staff and your employees day in, day out, it takes phone calls, facilitating, someone showing up to the job sites, project management, and a lot of people don't want to have to do that. And so they get a little sloppy on their labor, and at 4 o'clock, instead of going back and checking on their employees, they go down to the bar, have a beer, and go sit and hit happy hour at your expense and your dime, and then they land up reoccurring some of those costs into your finished expenses 2-3 houses down the road. And so to keep all that cost down and keep people on their toes, making sure they're managing their projects correctly, we always go out and reach out for additional bids over the course of time. And because of the volume that we do, we usually have 2 trades for everything that we do. So 2 electricians, 2 plumbers, 2 roofers, 2 everything. That way, if one is compromising our schedule, one's compromising our costs and budget, we can just pivot and go to the other one, and we have a relationship already set in place. And so we have enough workflow, enough deal flow that we can feed both of them. Now, for those people just getting started and this is their first deal, they're sitting back going, okay, well, I can't afford to have 2 electricians, 2 roofers, 2 plumbers. So how do I go in and how do I find the right contractors to come in and work for me? And so what I always tell people is, one, you always want to exercise referrals first. Now, not referrals from your cousin, your aunt, your brother, your sister. Those are the worst referrals that you can ever get. And the reason why is because some of these people have personal relationships, not business relationships, personal relationships. And there's a difference between mixing personal and business relations when you're doing anything in business at all, especially building a home. And so you want to make sure you have a true professional. So the people that advocate in my corner, like the real estate brokers, the title companies, all the professionals, my engineers, those are the people that I will first and foremost take referrals from. Other people that are building, my other colleagues, my competitors, we're friends. We all talk to each other. We try to set market standards for the houses that go into these subdivisions and that are around us that are building out. So all of us talk. We're all friends. Those are the people we'll go out and have happy hour with so that we can talk and commingle about how we're going to trim out our houses, how we're going to raise the values in a specific area. And I'll take referrals from them. I'll say, hey, Mike, who's the last company you used to frame your house? I'm having problems with my framers. They're super busy and the workmanship has gone down. Can you give me a referral on somebody that you're utilizing on the last couple houses that you've enjoyed working with? And I'll get referrals from them. Okay. Now, because we've been exercising these relationships for a long time, I urge you guys, when you have good relationships, exercise those relationships and take care of those people. Don't nickel and dime them in a way where you're trying to cut your margins to get larger profitability, but cut their profitability because they're not going to advocate for you. You want to pay them fair market value, and that's why you always go in and do your homework by getting multiple bids from multiple contractors, sending your plans out to 3 electricians or 4 electricians, 3 or 4 roofers, 3 or 4 plumbers, 3 or 4 concrete guys for foundations, 3 or 4 tractor guys that do your dirt work for your subgrade. And so you want to be able to check your prices with everybody so that you get fair market value, treat everybody fair, and it just keeps the whole ball rolling consistently and professionally. Now, contractors that you cannot find from referrals, the best way is from good lead providing sources. So we'll use stuff like Angie's List, and we'll use places like Home Advisor. We go in, these places check for criminal background checks. They do insurance background checks. If their insurance lapses, they take them off their services. If their contractor's license lapse, they take them off their service list. And then they have their review rated. So you can go in there, and every contractor is going to have 1 or 2 bad reviews if they have hundreds of reviews, us included. You know, there's always those hard, difficult customers. Not everybody's perfect. When you're dealing with over 500 customers a year like we do, you're going to have 1 or 2 people that are just unreasonable. So we don't look at 100% of all the reviews. We just look at the mass majority. So if they have 200 reviews, 300 reviews, and they have 1 or 2 bad ones, we'll read the bad ones to see what stuff those people had issues with. And typically it's nominal stuff that's just argumentative. We want to be able to find if this company is stable, if they're showing up, are they getting their work done? If we call them, do they answer their phone? Is there a recourse from them with emails? What type of professional recourse do we have with these guys? Are they a staple in your community? Do they have a work site? Have they been in the same building for a long duration of time? What is the experience with other contractors and other homeowners that have utilized these people over the course of time? And so we'll do our due diligence, and we'll get 2 or 3 of those contractors, and then we'll have them come out, and from those bids, we'll go ahead and start finding and building a network of individuals and professionals. Another place that we find referrals is from our other subcontractors. Typically, if we have a good subcontractor, a lot of the other subcontractors moonlight building or doing things, renovations on the side. So they also have relationships with other subcontractors from people they've utilized. So we'll also ask them, and we'll get references from our subcontractors that are well respected in our eyes. So another great way. Now, project management. This is one of the big things that I talk to people about. And it's probably one of the biggest misses that people lose and have the largest loss of margin on is project management. And this is something that I see time and time again. And one of the biggest reasons that we sit down and I talk and teach project management is because of the lack of professionalism in the project management industry. There's companies, there's people that individually start full-time businesses doing 100% of just project management because there is such a lack of it on most construction sites. Most blue-collar professionals, most contractors, they don't know how to go in and do project management. Most investors don't either. And so one of the biggest things I urge everybody to do is get some project management experience. You have to have systems set in place to make sure that your profitability is what you want it to be from the time you start to the time you finish. Because it's easy to dwindle $130,000 in profit down to $80,000 in profit from just nominal expenses, $1,000 here, $5,000 there, $1,500 there, $500 here, and it all adds up at the end of the project where it lands up decreasing your margins if you're not managing your project adequately. From theft, things walking off, from theft, from damages, from mismanaged labor, mismanaged subcontractors not reviewing bids, and so forth and so on. And so one of the biggest things, you want to make sure that you're managing your projects. Every time that we get started on a project, we sit down and we put a business plan together, and we say, okay, this house, we want to be able, we're starting it in January. We want this house to be fully complete and on the market by May 1st or May 15th or whatever it is. How are we going to achieve that? Okay, we start contacting people weeks and weeks and weeks in advance. We say, okay, we're going to be ready. Our permits are expected to be ready. We just submitted for permits. Our permits should be back to us in, X amount of weeks, a month, whatever it is. And then what we land up doing is we say, okay, we need you guys to come in here and turn dirt on this day. We get the surveyors to come in, mark our corners, concrete, after the dirt guys are done, the concrete guys come in, they set forms, we call our plumbers. Plumbers come in, they do their rough-in. We call the electricians. If there's any floor plugs or any conduit that needs to go on the floor, they set all that. Then we come back in, we get our inspections, we compact the subgrade, we pour concrete. We have a foundation down, our rough-in's in, all our plumbing and mechanical, whatever needs to go in that subgrade is done. Retaining walls are up if we're doing retaining walls or we're doing a drop level house. All that stuff is done. Foundation goes in, time to frame. Bring the framers in, the framers come in, they construct the house, they put it in. As soon as the framing is finished, we come in and before we get get anything else done, we roof the house, right? But we get all our penetrations done. So we have all our plumbers, our heating and cooling guys come in, set air conditioners, roof vents, all that stuff. Electricians get conduit out of the ceilings, the roofs come in, have the roofers come in. Then we have our tinners, our HVAC guys come in and put on all our heating and cooling. Our electricians come in, our plumbers come in. All these guys get our rough-ins done. Then we come in and we get insulation. Then we come in, we get sheetrock. Then we come in and we start trimming out the house. And at the same time, we're doing the exterior facade, whether it's brick, whether it's stone, whether it's stucco, whatever it is, we start doing that exterior facade in the same process that we're doing the inside. You want to make sure that the hammering of your sheetrock and the hammering of your stucco and nails are being done at the exact same time, so you're not damaging things while you're doing one end to the other. So there's a lot of techniques and stuff. And one of the big things that we teach is how to set up those processes in systematic orders that makes the best sense for the best profitability, best quality product, so that you can go in and profit every single time and set yourself up for success. And so when you're going in, you're building a house, start to finish. The first thing is you got to assess the price of your land. Second thing you need to do is you got to do a business plan to assess the cost of your construction, assess your infrastructure, all your impact fees, permit fees, water, sewer, and utilities. And then you go in and you start facilitating your subcontractors, your bids, and your costs breakdowns, and now you go in and you build a house. And when you're done with the house, you have to always assume real estate fees, closing fees, and transaction fees. So always assume your 6% real estate fees. Always assume your closing fees, which are going to be about 2%, give or take, on the entire closing of the house. And so you have about 8% of closing fees and real estate fees that you have to account for from the get-go of your construction. Now, the price margins and the cost that I'm facilitating here as far as our profits have already taken this stuff into accountability. And so now it's your job to go in, put all of this together, go buy a lot, and start facilitating the construction of your new investment home to resell. And ladies and gentlemen, that's how you go out and compound your success.